Make something terrible. Make whack stuff often, as much as possible, forever. If there's something you want to make, some field of creativity you wish you could be in, find the simplest and quickest version you can make it. Want to write books? Write a 1,000-word story. Want to make jewelry? Make a bracelet or a necklace. Want to be a songwriter? Pick 2 chords and write some damn words. Assume it will be awful. Then do it anyway. Finish it in all its imperfect, crappy glory. And then do it again and again and again. This is what we mean when we say put in the work. Playing the long game. I promise you. This is the path to getting good. Trying to make something perfect is just the quickest way to quit. Perfection is the enemy of good.
Hello and welcome to the Dynamic Creative Podcast. I'm your host, Dylan DeMarcus. This is your source of tools and inspiration for today's independent artists to activate, align, and empower the creative path to thrive with fulfilling and meaningful work that effectively pierces through the noise. On today's episode with recording artist, songwriter, music teacher, and author Joey Helpish, aka Uncle Nancy, we chop it up with our war on perfectionism as artists and how it does not serve us towards making good work, Joey's unique song therapy modality where he writes songs for clients in real time based on their thoughts and feelings, how to leverage Amazon to become a creative self-publishing powerhouse, and much more. Join us. Joey Helpish, welcome to the Dynamic Creative, my friend. It is really a pleasure to have you on. And first and foremost, I just want to acknowledge you for the altruistic, powerful work you've been up to as of late. You know, you're embodying music and teaching and so much more. And I'm really looking to unpack it with you. How are you?
I'm pretty awesome. I'm just getting over this cold. So forgive my raspiness. Uncle Nancy might come out a little bit.
I hope it does. Just to acclimate here a little bit, can you give us, like a little reference into your world? Like, how was your upbringing unique in a nutshell? And, how did it lead you to becoming such a force of nature in the way that you continually show up as an artist, creating, deeply meaningful and expressive work? And, what led you to where you're at today?
Yeah, you want the origin story, the issue number 1?
Break it down, my dude.
Yeah. So I'm from the Oregon coast, born into poverty with people who my family didn't really understand me. And I didn't have the kindest of upbringings. And I was creative pretty much right out the gate. Creative and weird. Didn't get diagnosed until my 20s, but I'm an autistic kid. I'm on the autism spectrum, and really didn't fit in with my family. So I spent a lot of time as much as I could away from my family. I'm blessed to have grown up in a really creative community in Newport, and kind of had some people take me under their wings. And I learned music really early. I started in church. Like art and music, kind of saved me. I was really suicidal as a young kid, and pretty much every time I made something instead.
The power of catharsis there. It's a powerful.
Yeah. It was made pretty twisted art from a young age. I'm actually working on, it's weird to think about, working on a book right now about the kind of creation of Uncle Nancy. So I created this artistic persona. Ended up having a little bit of success in the Northwest, a little bit, but that really helped a lot. So I moved to Eugene, for college, even though I didn't go to college. I figured out that everybody that I knew that went to college, they talked about the parties and the people they met. They didn't talk about the classes. So I skipped the classes and I moved by campus, and I just dove headfirst into music and creativity. Kind of built a little career for myself, but in the beginning was still extremely suicidal and extremely depressed. But at the same time, my prospects for employment were really low when I was young. And so I was a fisherman basically throughout high school until I was 19. And then this funny thing happened where the government was paying people in the ground fishing industry to retrain into other fields. And I was partially raised by my grandma, who's a caregiver and did child care and stuff. And one of the options was to get paid to get trained to be a CNA. So I did that.
Huh.
And then I'm a guy who always looks for loopholes. And so I found out that the facility hired me. So I was making a wage there as a CNA. And I found out they would keep paying me my $1,000 a month from the government if I kept taking classes. So I took this thing called the best friends approach, or validation therapy, which now, and I'll get to this in a second. Now, that's 50% of what I do is validation therapy. At the time, it was just a loophole. And I got trained in Alzheimer's and how to deal. The best friends approach in validation therapy is a technique when you're working with Alzheimer's. If they say the wall is blue, you just say, yep. Just believing everything that the person says is true, is valid. In the North Wing, they called it, where there was Alzheimer's, they didn't allow men. And then one day they were short-staffed. They said, oh, go ahead and send up Joey. And I just shined. I was incredible. I was getting people to do things that normally wouldn't do them. All through validation therapy. And so when I moved to Eugene, that was my path. I got into caregiving. So that I had this kind of dual thing happening when I lived in Eugene. I was like this kind of depressed, suicidal, crazy artist at first. And then kind of at night, but like during the day, because I used to sing all my pretty songs for the residents, but I would always sing the dark stuff with Uncle Nancy. And then at that time, I was starting to get kind of more into hip hop and have more of a kind of a fuck you attitude. And he said, you don't need to be here. And at the time I was 25 and like everybody that I worked with were twice my age. I was like, well, you're probably right. She said, you need to go. And so I did. I quit my job. I quit my everything. And I became a bit of a vagabond for the next 4 years. And at that time, I recorded my first album called Lovely with the band that would later become the Family Jewels. On that first tour, we would play all these love songs that are all super pretty and stuff. At the end, we would start doing we would do like Tom Waits versions of different songs. And we started getting kind of more into this vaudeville style. And it started as like the last 10 minutes of the show, then the last 20 minutes of the show, then the last 30 minutes of the show. And within that first year, we had completely changed our sound into something we called the Gypsy Pirate Blues. And it just kind of took off in that area. And it kind of became like, if someone's in Uncle Nancy, a certain sound comes to mind. There's been a lot of different sounds that I've done. But that kind of Tom Waits, Go-Go Bordello sound happens. And so we were killing it. We made 3 albums in 2 years and then a bunch of other different EPs and stuff. I was involved with this cool little collective called the Northwest Fresh Collective in Portland. We were starting to sell out larger venues. We were touring constantly. And then I pretty much just like killed myself on the road. And I got I have arthritis also. So I've dealt with chronic pain since I was 11 years old. And it went septic. And so basically what that means is like it gets in your blood and it goes everywhere. And I was just sick, sick, and can barely move. I also have anxiety. And I'm autistic and weird and things are intense for me in situations. And it just kind of came to a head while at the same time I had a contract for a major record label, which was my dream, right? That's everybody's dream until 10 years ago. Yeah. And so, and I said no, for a lot of reasons. One was that I didn't like the way I just still don't like the way people treat copyright. I don't like the way that it's locked up. I believe in a public domain, and I believe that there's no such thing as stealing. And I'm pretty far out there with a lot of my ideals on it. So I kind of told the band I was done, and I was just kind of too sick. We did one last kind of big hurrah, and then we were done. And we still play a couple times a year. We just played a week ago, and it was incredible. It's a really cool group of people. So then I just kind of spent like a year and a half, like alone in a room, sick. I started drawing a lot more, and I was just in a hole, man. And I wasn't caring for anyone. And I definitely was barely caring for myself. And then I went to visit my grandma, and she broke her arm on my way down there, and I stayed there for kind of off and on for like a couple years until she passed away. And I got to reconnect a lot of the lessons that she taught me. She used to call me Dandelion Eyes when I was young. And so I made this album called Dandelion Eyes, kind of like right after she had passed away. And at that time I was with somebody back on the coast, who had a couple kids, and I kind of temporarily adopted my nephew for a while. So I had 3 kids. I homeschooled them all. I taught them all music. And I got really into project-based learning. Uh-huh. And then after 3 years, I took the boys on a trip. I came back, and my partner informed me that she, had slept with someone else while I was gone, and that we were done. And so one day I was stay-at-home dad. The next day I was home. And so I decided to move back up to Portland, and I knew I wanted to start something. I wanted to keep teaching. I wanted to keep doing what I was doing. And I hit up my friend Keegan Smith, who I had played with the Northwest Fresh Collective thing. And I was so close to getting to start a business with me. I was like, hey, man, I think I want to start like a school, like a creative school for kids, especially like around the tween age. I think it's a really important age that we neglect. And he was almost there. And then one day he was like crying, and he was like, man, I just can't. Like, I'm too overwhelmed, but I have someone that I want you to meet that I just have a feeling like you guys are going to start a business together. And her name was Kirsten. And so I met her, and it was like super clicky. We started a business, and we kind of accidentally fell in love, and now she's my fiance.
Beautiful.
And so we started a business called Dandyland, it started off me just doing private lessons. And then we started kind of inventing our own way of doing things. And so basically the quick story of what we call emotional music theory or root motives is that I was walking by. She's really into hippie dippy stuff. I'm cynical about it, although I believe in it too. Uh-huh. So she was watching something about how a middle C at 400 something whatever hertz represents love, and I click pause, and I'm like, that's bullshit. Because not that a C wouldn't represent love, not that music can't represent love, but that music is relative, that it's all about the distance between notes and the relation to each other. Uh-huh. Then she was like, really? I was like, yeah, so a C major could be love if you're in the key of C, but so could a G major if you're in the key of G. And she's like, really? And I kind of like played it. And then the next note up, you go do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So you have 7 notes, 7 chords, and all music is based around that concept of 2 whole steps and a half, 3 whole steps and a half. And you build these chords. And the first one we decided was love, because that's what got my attention. The next one we decided was longing. And then it just went from there. We spent 3 days, ordered in every single meal, and we created what we call root motives, which is a way to assign these emotional root motives to the 7 chords, major or minor key. And we started teaching it. Then we started using it to write songs for people who were getting married. We would write their love song. They'd tell me the story, and I'd be like, what emotions kind of, pick some of these.
Yeah.
And it started working really well. And then we started teaching. It's really hard to teach a kid what the Dorian mode is, but you can tell them to play a major scale and root in longing, and they get it. And so it's a much easier tool for kids. And then about almost a year ago now, this whole idea of song therapy started, where we would listen to somebody talk and then translate their emotions and their thoughts into a song by kind of like using a simple rhyme scheme for the melody. And then oftentimes I'll just, after someone's done talking about something, I'll give them these 7 options and say, hey, pick one. And it's been working really well. And then I have all these kind of preachy things that I preach to students. And it started out as a way to kind of, I needed to vet people. There are certain people that like, I shouldn't teach them. And that's cool. There's plenty of other people who do it the old school way. But one of the things I tell them is that we are going to attack perfectionism, because that's the only way I got good, man.
That's one of my biggest enemies.
Yeah, it's everybody's. It's in the way, all the time.
Yep.
And so there's these people would always ask me, like, why are you so prolific? Like, by the time I was 23, I'd written over 1,000 songs.
Wow.
And there's a few reasons for that. Also, the same people would also always be amazed that I'm sober, that I don't drink. Uh-huh. Well, it's like, wait a minute. So you're amazed that I don't drink, and you're amazed that I write all this music. Well, while you're out drinking, guess what I'm doing? Yeah. Also, because I'm sweaty and weird on stage, right?
And just breaking guitar strings left and right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember one guy, he just assumed I always performed on ecstasy.
Right.
I'm like, no, man, no, that's not a thing. One of the big things was, hey, if you want to write songs, just write shitty songs. Just write something crappy and then do it again, and then do it again, and then do it again. Because those first 1,000 songs, bro, 4 of them were good.
Yeah. Amen.
But now I kind of don't write bad songs. Like, I might write songs that aren't hits, but I don't write songs that don't feel good anymore. Uh-huh. Every song I write always feels good because I know the process. And clearly, because I'm now doing it for other people, I can be inspired by anything, and I know exactly how to get that from an inspiration and a thought down to a song in about 30 minutes. Uh-huh. And this year for me has been all about kind of eating my own dog food and like put my money where my mouth is, and like and preaching, about how people need to handle their reputation and their personal brand. And I haven't been doing it. So I started, and I knew that I needed to like prove this concept of just like sit alone in a room with your walls as empty as you can make them. You have 2 options: do nothing or do the art. And sometimes doing nothing is great. And usually if you do nothing long enough, you get bored and you make the art. I couldn't do that with songs because I've already made a bajillion albums. So I kind of like sat and I was like, well, what do I want to do? How can I prove this concept? Well, I've always wanted a book. Okay, so self-publishing is a thing, so I can make my own book. Now I'm going to eat my own dog food. I always tell people to do the minimum amount of effort. Uh-huh. So it's like, what's the minimum amount of pages I can print with Amazon's KDP, with their Kindle self-publishing thing? Uh-huh. It's 25 pages. Okay, that's about 5,000 words. Cool. Then I need to figure out how long can I sit down and write. I already knew the answer to that because I'm already accustomed to sitting down and finishing something in 30 minutes. Right. Because that's how I do songs. So I'll write something for 30 minutes and then post it on Facebook because then it's real. Mm-hmm. And then I'll let the kind of feedback that I get dictate what I do the next day. And then I did it. And so I just published my first book, What the Helpish, Volume 1. It's a total proof of concept. And I did it in a month. Yeah. From me going like, I need to practice what I preach to getting the thing in the mail. It was a month. And then what's also interesting is that all of the articles or essays or what have you are all this kind of like, hey, make stuff. Stop making excuses. It does kind of have a theme. I wasn't going for a theme, but that's kind of the thing with my life, which is like, the best thing we could do for the whole freaking planet is if everybody made stuff, if everybody created stuff. There's also some other like crazy ideals that I have. Like, I don't think jobs are a thing for very much longer. I really don't. I think maybe a half a century, maybe. All the great sci-fi writers that I love, they predicted this for over 100 years, that humanity would just move to a place where it's all about emotional work, emotional labor, which is what art is, instead of physical labor. And most of the jobs that exist are emotional labor.
That's rad. Your book is clearly on a very different approach, the way you created that. Everything that you shared online has been really provocative and has a lot of gravity to it.
Thanks, man.
Is there like a specific passage or two that you'd be willing to share with us?
There is the first page. So when you open up this book, What the Helpish, the brain drippings of a professional amateur, you actually get the very first thing I wrote when I decided I was going to do this. So I'll just go ahead and read it, huh?
Drop the science.
Yeah. Make something terrible. Okay, here's the thing. Make whack stuff often, as much as possible, forever. If there's something you want to make, some field of creativity you wish you could be in, find the simplest and quickest version you can make it. Want to write books? Write a 1,000-word story. Want to make jewelry? Make a bracelet or a necklace. Want to be a songwriter? Pick 2 chords and write some damn words. Assume it will be awful. Then do it anyway. Finish it in all its imperfect, crappy glory. And then do it again and again and again. This is what we mean when we say put in the work. Playing the long game. I promise you. This is the path to getting good. Trying to make something perfect is just the quickest way to quit. Perfection is the enemy of good. Boom.
Boom. Boom. You're so spot on with that, Joey. And I love how you're such a stand for just obliterating perfectionism and to just do the work for the work's sake and to make do with what you have. And I feel like the majority of the battle really is to just keep showing up and not be like super attached to these outcomes, but just do it for the sake of the process and to be proactive in our art. It reminds me of one of my favorite Stephen Pressfield quotes from his book, The War of Art, where he says something along the lines of, "It's better to be in the arena getting stomped by the bull than it is to be up in the stands or out in the parking lot." Because like in our art, we can either be involved or we can be a bystander. And we're not making any good art as a bystander. And with this approach of yours, I'm sure it really makes an impact on your music students too. It's awesome.
Yeah, man. I mean, I'm passionate about this because I've seen it work. Yeah. When I look at a kid and I say, okay, you're going to go in the booth and you're going to record this song that you just wrote. It's going to suck. It's going to be awful. And then you're going to do it anyway. And then we're going to do it again.
Yeah.
Or even before they write a song. But I do have to tell you, that's more common in adults because adults are babies. Kids are usually like, yeah, I'm in there.
Yeah, they're way more in the flow state. And that's dope that you were able to just manifest that through Amazon like that. It seems to me like a lot of people are really more leaning into developing a personal brand, and individuality is obviously a lot more in the forefront today than it was in the past. Like, I'm wondering what your process was and if that was easy for you to get that book published, and if that's like a realistic thing for people that got, an idea in their head.
Dude, it's so realistic. I guess I can just go through the whole process, which is I use a note-taking app and just wrote the each kind of like little essay for 30 minutes, which is basically like they're tiny little chapters, right? And then would post them. And then when I knew I had enough, I used Google Docs and I made sure to format it right, how I wanted the print version to look. The thing is, you have to make a different version of the doc for the ebook and the print book, because the ebook, when you're reading an ebook, you can make it as big and as small as you want. So it has to have that kind of flow, whereas a print book is a print book and it looks the same way every time. And I knew I wanted larger print. So I kind of formatted the Google Doc, and then I downloaded the Google Doc as a Word document. Went to KDP, signed up. You got to put in you got to set up an account. You got to put in your bank information so that they can send you the payment. And then they have a cover designer, and you can go through and you can check everything. It got a little stressful the night. I thought it was going to be a little bit easier. It's still easy, but it's lots of double checking and everything. I think it took 3 days. Wow. Cool. Before I got the thing. So it took a day before I could order copies before it was on Amazon. You can order your print costs. So the way that they do it is that this book, for instance, is for sale for $6 and it costs $2 to print. So I can get author copies. So I got a few at the house that I either give away or sell or whatever. And then you just kind of split the royalties with Amazon. It's not very much. I actually make more money when I sell one of the books I got for $2 for $6. I get $4 profit or whatever. I think I get $1.50 when people order it, but I don't care. That's not really the game. The game is getting it in people's hands. So does that kind of answer your question a little bit? Of just
yeah, no, for sure. Cause I think a lot of people see publishing a book is a really daunting thing, and it sounds to me like it's actually a realistic, straightforward thing. So the writing of it is the daunting thing, and the editing part, which I cheated and I wrote on the back the reasons why you shouldn't read this book, and one of them is if you're a grammar Nazi, because I edited myself and I don't care if there's problems with it, because it's part of the whole thing. Is just getting it out there, being okay if I've got a misspelled word or whatever. And this book has more life. I'm actually working on the audiobook. You can upload Audible books by yourself. Oh, wow.
And the other thing that I'm working on, that's going to take a little bit longer, is making kind of PowerPoint style presentations of once I have the audio done, and kind of having a visual way for the text to be displayed. And then that's going up on Amazon Prime. You can upload videos to Prime, your own movies and stuff. And if you have a Prime membership, you can watch that stuff on the Prime Video app. Another thing I just discovered is you can do the same thing with albums, with CDs and DVDs. Amazon is this whole self-publishing empire, but you kind of have to look for it. I also just discovered Amazon Merch, which is an invite only kind of thing. And I just signed up for that. Yeah, I mean, there's so much. I mean, and not just Amazon. There's tons of other third-party things.
Well, you got the entire holistic Joey Helpish just immersion there with the media. That's dope.
Yeah, I'm trying.
So I want to backtrack a little bit. Really want to dive into your song therapy, because as a huge proponent of music and therapy as a whole, being two the most healing modalities, I think literally one of the dopest things I've came across in years has been your brilliant work with DANDYLAND Studios and with your partner with the song therapy, and how you just you seamlessly combine the therapy and the music so amazingly. And can you just unpack how your approach is with a client, how you go about getting them a song and what that process is like?
Yeah. So it's pretty straightforward at this point, and it's gotten a lot quicker than when I first started. But basically they're always online or over the phone or over text now. We started doing text, and it's incredible. That's a cool experience. I actually did 2 clients while I was shopping, and then came home and recorded the songs and sent to them. Okay. So the process goes, they either text or they do a phone call or a video chat. And it usually takes anywhere between 5 minutes of them talking and about 20. It really depends on the kind of person and what they've been going through. And so for some people, they come as soon as they hear the word song therapy, they know exactly what they're talking about. And sometimes it's traumatic things. Sometimes it's, I've done a lot of songs about people losing loved ones or breakups. But sometimes it's just an anthem. Right. It's just a really cool way to it's this other way of manifesting some stuff. Or you just talk about your week. You just get to talk. And I barely talk. I will kind of poke and prod a little bit if I want them to unpack something. But while they're talking, I'm writing in verse. And so in case you don't know what that is, it's 4 lines at a time. Usually a verse is 8 lines and a chorus is 4 lines, and you got 2 verses in the chorus. For hip hop, that can double and triple in numbers. I keep a really simple syllable structure. And what the syllable structure does, so if I've got, say it's like all 6 syllables, and then I almost always use just the easiest rhyme scheme I can, but sometimes it's dictated on whatever the first couple lines are, what my rhyme is. But I'll stick it to 6 syllables for each line, because then that becomes my melody line. Then it becomes a do 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 do, and then that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's say it's 7 syllables. So I'll write out. I'll kind of translate what they're saying into rhyme. And usually I have a few different techniques for getting the hook out of someone. Sometimes it's like, if you could say to the person that you lost, like 2 sentences, what would they be? Or if you could only say one thing over and over, forever and ever, what would be the thing? I have a bunch of different techniques for that. And then usually what I'll do to kind of like include them a little bit more is, first of all, I have to decide if I'm using a standard scale, if I'm going a little bit gypsy with it, which is a harmonic minor, which is a different scale, or blues. And I kind of get that gist. And then those 3 different scales have different root motives. So that if it's clearly going to be something rooted in love or despair, which is the major and the minor, the natural major and natural minor, I'll say, okay, so love, longing, sorrow, hope, power, despair, transition. And then repeat them again and have them pick a couple. Those are the chords. So let's see here. So if I decide it's a G major kind of day.
Hey, strum it.
Yeah. So if it's a G major kind of day, I thought it was going to be smoother. Then love, longing, sorrow, hope, power, despair, transition, love. So if it's just they're having a real happy day and just love and hope, and then I take that syllable structure and I kind of make a little melody. So if it's 7 syllables, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And whatever I wrote in that syllable structure, that fit. And that's the song. And so then as I'm doing the session, I've got a microphone I use the simplest stuff because it's got to be raw, right? So I just use basically my live setup. So I have a SM57 on my whatever instrument. Sometimes it's guitar, sometimes it's a piano and it's plugged in, and sometimes it's a banjo or uke. I have a couple different kind of styles of ukulele. And then I have the classic SM58 on my vocals. It's plugged into a little 2-channel thing into my iPad and GarageBand. And so I perform it for them for the first time while I'm recording it to like some high quality stuff. And so they kind of hear a rough version, it's usually on the phone or whatever. And people love it, but then I immediately send them a SoundCloud link. And that's kind of, I think, when the magic happens, when you like stick on the headphones and you get to hear your emotions and your story like back to you. And that moment when I get to see them hear their emotions come back to them, that actually what started the whole thing was that this whole concept of like, I need to give this to people. It wasn't, although it informs a little bit, that I'm a songwriter and that I know the true power of the therapy of songwriting.
Totally.
I went to 2 different shows. The first show was for an album that I produced, and they sang one of my songs. Then I went to another show. 2 bands at that show sang one of my songs. So in one night, 3 different people sang my emotions back to me, and they were all pretty intense songs.
Whoa.
Yeah. So 2 things happened. One, I was like, well, obviously I want more people to sing my songs because it's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah.
But I think I can do this for people. I think I can give this to people. I think I can sing people their songs. Sure. And so I actually started doing that with students, because students start writing songs. I always make people write songs as soon as I can. And we just assume it's going to be terrible, right? But then when I sing it back to them as a performer who's, I got some skills and stuff, it was incredible. It's incredible for someone to they kind of can't sing very well. They can't yet, and they can't play guitar very well yet. But they write a song anyway, and then I sing it to them. They're like, oh, crap. But then I got to kind of cut out with song therapy. I get to cut out the middleman, and I just write the song for them and perform the song for them. All they have to do is tell me their story and how they feel.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like the coolest science that you've helped uncover, and you're really
I think so too.
Shit there.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you said help uncover, because I've always felt sometimes it slips out. I don't know why, that like we didn't invent this stuff. We pulled some brush back. By no means is our root motives something that Kirsten and I made up. We found it, and we put in the work. One of the other things is that my apprentice at the time, Kurt Danis, shout out to the Danis. So after that 3 days, I actually spent an entire, I think probably 20 hours, dude, in my studio with Kurt. And Kurt's like, dude, I think this is real. I was like, yeah, I think so too. And we threw it at everything. We threw it at, Louie Louie, Wild Thing, all country and blues, old school before the 1950s. That's all based on the 145, which is love, hope, and power. So that's the happy music of the 1950s and 60s.
Right.
Yeah, What I Got by Sublime. That's power, hope, and love. And that song Wicked Games. That's rooted in longing, love, and power. And then we started throwing it the Superman theme and all these all this orchestral music.
Right.
Oh man. It's really a thing. Yeah. And it also fits into that whole rule of 7, right? And it's that ridiculous number is everywhere.
And then if you're a brand or a business, these anthems you're creating through song therapy are available for branding as well for other people looking at that, right? Have you ever had a client in that light?
Yeah, actually a couple of coaches in the coaching space that's basically their anthem.
Right.
For what they do. And I've seen a few people kind of use it to they've attached it to different promotional things that they do. I also basically do the same thing. That's what we have this kind of beta program. We're always doing beta things called Dandy Ditties, which is basically jingles for brands and small businesses.
Right.
Because writing a minute song takes me no time at all. Mm-hmm. And that's been fun. But definitely the anthem thing is really cool, because all you have to do is tell me who you are. Sure. And then I'll turn it into a song,
Yeah.
You can tell me about your dog that died, or you can just tell me about who you are, or who you want to be, or who you used to be, and who you want to be.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And then I don't have to worry about writing hit songs, because the hit song just has to hit with one person.
Right. For sure.
And it's as an artist, it's a really freeing thing to be all I have to do is make this person laugh, cry, or smile. That's all I have to do.
And so that's one of the main things that you offer at DANDYLAND Studios. And then the other aspect of that is music education. Is that correct?
Yeah. What we do at DANDYLAND right now, there's more pillars rising. But the main 3 things that we do are song therapy, workshops, and then just one-on-one. And the one-on-one is, I can do and do just like, I'll teach you how to play guitar or whatever. But there's always songs, always focused on songs. That's my thing. I like tried to be a DJ for like 2 seconds. And then I was like, this isn't my thing. This is not the world, because it's not song centric.
Right.
And in fact, you try to approach it. I know you know this. If you try to approach it like song centric, you're kind of going to mess up the vibe of what's trying to happen. It's much more dance centric, and a set is a song in a lot of ways. And so I'm always very song focused. And then we have the workshops, which is mostly, that's pretty much all we do as far as in person. And I'm trying really hard to figure out a way to bring everything online, because I like not leaving my house.
For sure.
But we have a studio in Portland on Belmont. But now we started in August offering online lessons, and everybody moved over that lives in Portland. Everybody moved over. The only one, I guess there's a fourth thing that I forgot, which is apprenticeship. And an apprenticeship is like lessons, but 2 to 4 hours a week. That's just more intensive. And that's very song focused. And that's a little bit teaching, but a little bit coaching also. And then the coaching space is something I want to get a little bit more into, although I'm just kind of like dipping my toes in and seeing like what is going to be my whole thing. I read the definition of what, coaching is. And I was like, that's literally all I do every day.
Right.
Ask people questions and like help them on their path. And
yeah, when you're in that kind of coaching space that sounds like you're intuitively already showing up as, like, is there any cliche or common like blockages with younger creatives that you're able to help them navigate through? Like, I know you said earlier, like getting over the fear of perfection is a huge one. Do you see yourself like helping people like uncover anything else with their blind spots that they see?
Yeah, it's so different for so many people. I think the biggest one is just realism. Especially, I think people kind of my age-ish, or maybe even older, I don't know, just certain types of people, they think rock stars still exist. They think like a career in music is this one-dimensional thing, and it's just not.
I mean, it's even similar with like business. You see all these young kids thinking they're going to be this millionaire entrepreneur, and it's like such a silly pipe dream half the time.
So, yes. So that kind of goes into like, if and when I do a business coaching, because I'm like, it's decades now that I've not really had a job. It'll be less about success and more about survival, dog.
Yeah.
More about like how do you eat cheaply? What I figured out really just like pretty recently is that like, man, all these successful people, do you know what they did more than anyone else? They survived first. Like everybody starts at $1 million. Like everybody starts at $1 million business. Like what? Like, cool. That's a cool goal. That is a lot of work and stuff. But like, yo, bro, start with $1,000 a month, dog. Like, can you do that? Can you just do that without borrowing money? Just make $1,000 a month on your own, without a boss and without borrowing any money. If you can't do that, you got to do that. That's got to be step one. Right. It's just like $1,000 a month, which is not even a livable wage. But like that, if you can just do that, then you can start to like, but you gotta figure out how to like make that money, like actually make it. So I think that's one of them. One of the things is just really being real and being like, nah, that rock star thing is like, let me tell you how much work that takes. Like for me, as someone who's like a local celebrity, my band would sometimes play together. We never rehearsed. We just played. We just worked 6 to 12 hours a day, 6 days a week sometimes, man. That's what it takes. Like when people are telling me like, I'm gonna have a band and we're gonna blow up and we're gonna play just like 2 hours a week. And I'm like, no, not at all.
Right.
Not whatsoever. And that's fine. That's like super cool. Because you still should play music, even if you're not going to be a rock star. I always use the it's like riding a bike, which is in my book also, which is like nobody ever says, well, I'm never going to be a rock star, so I'm not going to put in the effort. Like, yo, bro, Does anybody ever say that about riding a bike? Like, I'm not going to be Lance Armstrong, so I'm not going to ride a bike. No, riding a bike is dope and it's good for you.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
and like not everybody does, but like probably everybody should, right? And it's really, really good for you. It's a really good way to exercise your body and get you to the place where you got to go in a pretty efficient way. Art and creativity is a really good way to exercise your soul and get your soul to where you need to go.
For sure.
In a really efficient way, you know?
Yeah. Another big part, I think, that a lot of people trying to come up, whether it's through their art or their businesses, they're so like, tunnel vision focused on what they're going to achieve that they lose sight of the art of fulfillment once they get there. Once you get this, that, or the other said object or status, like then comes into play the art of fulfillment and learning how to just appreciate that and be present. And I think that's what a lot of people lose touch of.
Yeah. And I'm really big into the process. That's like the biggest. And that's why I tell people like I teach a lot of people how to make beats. And a lot of them on their phone, on GarageBand, or an iPad, right? And so I teach them how to I'm like, all right, let's make some whack ass beats. Okay. Make one, get 2 chords, drum beat, hitting on bass on the 1 and the 3 and the snare on the 2 and the 4. There you go. Add a little bit of hi-hat stuff. Cool. Bass line using the same chords that you just used. Any 2 chords in the key. Cool. All right. Now exit out of that. Now do it again. 2 different chords. Do it a little bit faster.
And
now do it again. And do it again. Yeah. Because it's the process.
Yeah.
You have to just have to enjoy like making a beat, and not give a crap about it. And like, I have gone back and forth with this so many times as an artist and as a creator of like loving the process and just letting go, or getting way too analytical and just like thinking like, this is going to be the song, man. Like every song I've ever had that did well,
right?
I had no idea. I wrote a silly song, by far, like hundreds of thousands of plays, and did really well. Helped our first Family Jewels album sell a lot of downloads, a lot of streams, and all that. It's a song called "Hey Hey," which I was sitting on my friend's couch. And we were jamming, and he just starts singing, "Hey, hey, my, you're an asshole, you fucking douchebag piece of shit." and thought nothing of it. We put it on the album, right? People started singing along. Dude, 3 years later, that same friend is standing in a crowd at the Crystal Ballroom where it's like sold out. There's like thousands of people singing that song except for one dude. That dude that was singing to me on the couch is just standing there, holding his hands up with a big smile, looking around and looking at me as I'm on stage. Like, what is happening? And that stuff just happens, And then Dandyland just had its first kind of little micro hit. We don't get a lot of plays. That's not what we're doing it for. We're actually doing it for our students and stuff. And we put out like 39 albums so far on Dandyland. If you go to Spotify and you look up, there's a whole bunch of song therapy. There's like 9 song therapy albums. There's also a bunch of stuff that I've done with and for students. And then recently we were really proud, and we have another one coming out soon. We did an entire kids album, all written by kids. It's ridiculous because they're all songs that, I tell kids you can write about whatever the heck you want. It's a free speech zone, like whatever. So you got songs about the president being a piece of cheese. You got songs about you pickled from space. You got songs about the Portland bridges. And then I wrote this one song with some 4-year-olds called "Poopy Stupid Butt." Because they're like kids, right? And so it doesn't rhyme or anything. It's just ridiculous. Like the Legos are eating the potty. Pizzas are, doing construction in their underwear. It's all this absolute nonsense. Yeah. So the album comes out, and then I get this like comment on Facebook or something of this person that's like, my kid said play poopy butt to Alexa, and Alexa played the song. Thanks a lot, guys. Now I have to listen to the song every night. And then like a month later, I look on was it YouTube? And the version that's on YouTube of that song had like a couple thousand plays, which is really rare for us. Like, we're not concerned about that stuff at all. Right. We get like, each song gets a couple hundred plays or whatever, mostly from the people who made it and their parents. And I look at all the comments, and it's the same thing, like over and over. It's like, hey, my kid said poopy stupid butt or poopy butt or stupid butt to Alexa. And then now I have to listen to the song all the time. Thanks, guys. So then just like a few weeks ago, I was like, we were like kind of strapped like for the day. Right. And we had like some bills coming up, and I was like really like kind of being an ass to Kirsten and was like stressed out. I was like, you know what, hun, I'm going to go in the back room, go to my office. I'm just going to make it happen. I'm just going to figure out how to like get us. We were like $100 short or something silly like that.
Yeah.
On something. And I was like, I'm just going to go figure it out. I'm going to check my email. I'm going to check all our accounts, see if there's some money in there. So first thing I do is go to DistroKid thinking like, oh, there's probably $20. I can pop that in my PayPal account. We make like maybe $40 a year on like streams or whatever.
Yeah.
So long story short, the $100 was sitting in there, and there's like 70,000 plays of this silly little song.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. Since then, there's been another like 5,000. So it's like, it's still growing. And then I just found somebody pirated that song and stuck it on a video game thing. It just sort of happened organically. I didn't do anything. I did one thing.
Yeah.
I did it over and over and over again. That's like the only thing you can do. Is just keep on putting out stuff. Something's going to hit probably, or it won't. But as long as you get in that flow, you're just enjoying the process. The thing that's really cool to that song hit is that it was an amazing experience. Because I just sat with these weird little 4-year-olds and we just made a stupid song, and I just went home and recorded it, put it on an album, and now kids listen to it every night.
It's really funny you mentioned that, because the 2 songs that I wrote that have by far the most plays on SoundCloud from back in the day, one was when I sat down in a coffee shop and I promised myself that I wouldn't get up until a song that I could finish until the cafe closed. And I only put like, I don't know, 6 hours into it or something. But I was like, as much as I wanted to keep meddling away and perfecting it, I was like, I just rendered it down. I was like, that's good. I'm going to upload it. I don't care. And that ended up like racking a bunch of plays. And then the other tune I put out that ended up getting like a frivolous amount of plays was, I was in a motel room in Nevada City one night, and I was just in this flow state. I was not attached whatsoever to the outcome, and I was just doing it out of pure enjoyment. And I ended up uploading that, and that one also just like totally cracked off. And, you know, the more we try to look at these things as being serious and attaching them to the outcome, like the less power that they get, you know?
Yeah. Every song I've ever had that resonated with people, it was just a random moment, man.
Yep. And then where do you see music going in the near future? Like, I know you're pretty tied in a lot of ways, but where do you see the things trending?
Like music in general, I have a lot to say on this.
Yeah, if you can distill that down, like, I'd love to hear your take on it.
First, I have to mention a book. Boy, I wish I knew what the writer's name was, but he was one of the people involved with creating synthesis. And he wrote this music. He wrote this book, this short little like 100, 200 page book called The Future of Music. I can't remember everything other than it blew my mind twice. It blew my mind the first time I read it, because he was talking about things like, like music is going to become a utility. Music wants to be free. And he talked about music before the 20th century and what it's going to be like after the 20th century. It's just like crazy stuff. But then I recently read it and I was like, holy crap. Like, he predicted everything. But one of the big takeaways, so obviously he predicted like Spotify and like the way that music is a utility. We pay so much a month and we get unlimited access, just like water or heat. But what really like got to me, as someone who's always seen music as a language, people say that, but they don't really get it. They don't, like, very few people are like, oh yeah, the universal language. Yeah. Like, no, like it is a language, and there's so much in there that needs to be unpacked. Like, when you were learning how to speak English, did someone tell you that like you had to like, you couldn't talk to these certain people who spoke English better than you until you got to a certain point? Like, no, when you were a kid, people spoke like you talked. They went down to your level and brought you back up. And that's what we try to do at Dandyland, is that we just try to figure out like, hey, can you just like, is there some instrument somewhere and some 2 chords or even 1 chord that you can just like make go in a loop? Cool. I'm going to do that loop with you. All right. Yeah. Can you sing? No? Whatever. Scream these words. Like, just get it. Let's just get it. And then I've done that with so many people. And over time, just watching them, like, all of a sudden they're like getting really good. You know, I'm now like 3 years. I'm in my 4th year at Dandyland. And like, there's some students that have been with me the whole time. They're pretty incredible. But one of the things he talks about in that book is how before, like, music has always had a spot in elitism. Art always has. But before the record industry, music was such a communal thing. Before there was like radios and phonographs and like all this stuff in people's homes, it was a community event. It was a language that was spoke. The songs were passed down, and it was beautiful. And then it was really exploited for about 100 years. And the argument that he makes, that I make too, is that 100 years is about what you can do. You can do it for about 100 years to any kind of creativity, to any kind of like pure, authentic, wonderful medium. You got about 100 years to exploit before technology will catch up with you. Books, that happened. If you look at like books that were written in the late 1800s and books that were written in the late 1900s, there were so many more. And it got to the point where now some dude can just publish a book because he wants to, and no one has to. And it's just a way to communicate. So I've always kind of felt that way. And then I started teaching the current generation between the ages of like 8 and 15. Maybe it's a little bit broader than that. But right now I teach a lot of young women between the ages of like 8 and 15. They're the most musically literate group of human beings that I have ever encountered or studied. I've studied lots about culture and music, a lot. I've been obsessed since a really young age. And then and like I mentioned before, that I was a stay-at-home dad and did homeschool. And I really learned about the big why. The big why has changed everything more than people can possibly fathom. Because people under the age of 20, they don't get it. People over the age of 20 can't possibly get it. I kind of get it, but I don't really get it. And the big why is YouTube. Like, these kids that are growing up with, like, when I was a kid, I had like a couple buddies who could teach me some guitar licks, and who could like, yo, have you heard this like super rare bootleg where Kurt Cobain is like puking on Eddie Vedder and like, right?
So you're talking about YouTube University in a sense.
Yeah. Well, so like back in the day, it was like you had to have like just a couple of buddies, right? Now everybody has everybody.
Right.
So if a kid wants to learn about ukulele, it takes them about a week to become a pro on the ukulele, because they have so much free time now. But that there is all information of all time at all times, that this generation, the literacy rate, even for kids who don't read, one of the things that really bothers me, has always bothered me, as someone who is extremely literate and doesn't read a lot, is that for so many people that means reading a book. No, it means understanding words and concepts, and like literacy can be just so much more than that. And the music literacy and the art literacy and the creativity literacy that is happening right now is so fucking mind-blowing and game-changing. I'm so blessed and so stoked to kind of be on the forefront of that a little bit, and hopefully like I'll just keep plugging at that and keep helping people see, what's going on. But there's so many things. I mean, and I kind of get to be like an advocate, not only for young creatives, but also for young queer kids. I work with a lot of kids on the queer spectrum and a lot of kids on the autism spectrum.
Awesome.
And like the joke that I used to say, it's not such a joke anymore, is that like, no, dog, the future isn't female. It's non-binary, autistic, and super creative. And I think that's kind of, it's kind of a thing. And
intersectional as fuck.
Yeah, super. And I think that it becomes more of a language and a literacy of music like than we've ever seen before. Because people are just now figuring out that the computer in your pocket is far more powerful of a music making machine than most producers' computer.
Right.
And that the app ecosystem is finally starting to catch up. My favorite thing was like, there's a artist producer friend of mine. He was like, I kind of hate that you like teach kids to make music on their phones and stuff. And I was like, really? Why? He's like, well, you just can't get the quality you can get from like a PC. I'm like, bro, you know who you sound like, right? Like he's of my same age and making music at the same times. He knows exactly what I was saying. You sound like, well, you just can't get the same quality from an ADAT than you can get from reel to reel. Well, you just can't get the same quality from a computer than you can get from an ADAT. And it's just forever and ever. And eventually there's going to be kids that are like, you can't get the same quality from your VR space bubble wristwatch than you can from an iPhone 11 Pro, dog.
Totally.
So I just think it becomes like talking. And it's hard to grasp for a lot of people. I think that the same way that pictures and videos have become this new form of communicating. Like Snapchat's a big deal. It's not necessarily a big deal as an app platform, like that it existed and that it came in when it came in, that a whole bunch of kids just said, nah, I just want to like make stupid pictures and like communicate visually in this way. I think that music is going to become that. And I think that we're going to see a lot more forms of songs. Because this whole concept of a 2.5-minute song, man, like it ain't gotta be like that all the time.
Right.
It can be 30 seconds. It can be a minute. You can be Tool and put out an awesome album of all 10-minute songs, or you can put out a bunch of 1-minute songs,
Yeah. It seems like everything is just, going to be rule bending, real time, highly rendered, interactive. It's hard to even wrap your head around, but something along those lines. It's exciting and it keeps changing so fast. Yeah.
And I think that while electronic music is like here to stay, right? It's like, it's a thing forever. There's really something to say about the fact that most kids I know play the ukulele. Like most.
Because like that's almost such a solid foundational baseline for everything else.
Because it's $50 and it's the easiest thing it's the easiest instrument you can learn. The problem with a guitar and a piano, which were always the go-to things, is a 6-year-old can't play one physically. It can't hold that shit down. You can buy a Kala Shark ukulele. It's got great action, made of a composite material, so it's pretty durable. Tuning pegs are great.
Yeah.
You can get them, between $40 and $50 with a case, usually with a tuner. Like that's incredible. That's fucking incredible.
I've heard you only need to know like 6 chords on a ukulele and you can basically play every rock song that's ever written too, or something along those lines.
4
chords.
Yep.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I have one in my room. I better pick that thing up.
Yeah. All you need to know is a C, G, an A minor, and an F, and they're all like relatively close to each other, except for that we call it the dreaded G, which is like a pretty big stretch for little hand.
Okay.
And it's funny that you say that because I'm actually like on the down low working on something, which is I'm working on an album. We're in a couple albums right now, always, but 2 of them are pretty special. The one secret one that I haven't talked about is all 1-finger ukulele songs. Whoa. So I'm trying to do versions, a few covers and a few originals, but it's all stuff that a 4-year-old can do. Yeah. Cool.
Is there any last advice you'd be that you've gotten yourself, or any that you find really resonates with you that you'd be willing to share?
Yeah. Can I talk about Can I talk about my last name?
Yeah, please.
Okay. I love the story and I can't tell it enough. And it kind of like goes into the next book that I'm working on is called Uncle Nancy is Dead, Long Live Uncle Nancy. And it's all about identity. Born Joseph Allen Stewart. I've been known as Uncle Nancy because Joseph Allen Stewart created the persona of Uncle Nancy. Uncle Nancy created a persona called Lonesome, which is a whole other weird thing. But then the book is a lot. Originally, I was going to call it, and it might be the subtitle, The Slow and Painful Death of Joseph Allen Stewart. And so Joseph Allen Stewart doesn't exist anymore. But his kind of last dying thing was creating who I am. And it's a really complicated, weird, abstract thing. Identity has always been weird with me. It's the story. It's this story. Why my name is Helpish and not Stewart. My name, I kind of went back from Nancy to Joey. One thing you'll notice is that both things have that E thing at the end, which I love because it kind of embraces my kind of youthful feminism-ish that I got going on, mixed with some of that masculinity. My grandma, I was kind of like shared between my parents and my grandma, mostly because I just got along with my grandma a lot, and she happened to be intelligent, and my parents unfortunately weren't and aren't. And it was really rough for me because at a really young age, I just kind of outgrew that whole scene. So I started spending a lot more time with grandma, and she taught me so much. And all of it really is in this story, which is I was like 15 and I went to visit her in Arizona for Christmas. I always spent every single holiday, every summer with her. And for a while when I was in high school, she had moved to Arizona. And so I was in Arizona and I woke up Christmas Day, and it's just me and my grandma. And there is a full on feast being cooked. It is crazy. There's like all the burners happening. There's griddles on. There's like all the stuff, like big bowls. I'm like, what the hell? And I thought that it was just going to be us. And my grandma's not there. My grandma comes in and she like dishes up a whole bunch of plates, sticks tinfoil over them. And before she's out the door, she's like, here, get your help and make a bunch more. And I'm like, what? And she's out the door and she's back a few minutes later. And I made all the plates, and we just do that. Like, it happened so quick. And it was probably like a good 30 minutes of just like me waking up this teenager and be like, I guess I'm in a soup kitchen now. Like, I don't know what's happening. And I'm like dishing up all this food. And then she's done. And I'm like, Grandma, what the hell is going on? And because the first time I asked, she's like, shut up and work. and we just like got to work, and we like dished out all this food. And we were at a trailer park in Queens Creek, Arizona. And finally, when she was like done, we like sat down and we like ate. And I was like, Grandma, what just happened? And there was like 100 people in that trailer park or something. And she's like, a lot of these people don't have any money or food, and it's Christmas. Mm-hmm. And I do. And then she just like looked at me and she goes, Joey, because we're not selfish, we're helpish. This is what we do.
I love it.
And it really just stuck with me. It was the only time she'd ever said that. I don't know if I doubt she got it from somewhere. She was just really good at just like making up weird stuff. And so that story kind of like stuck with me over the years. And as she was leaving us and I got to take care of her, we had this really intense conversation before she passed. It was it was intense, but it's also silly. And, I was the only one that was allowed to kind of like cuss at grandma and call her names, and we'd give each other and grab each other. And I always used to like piss off everybody in my family. Like, why do you get away with that? Well, I don't know, but it's awesome. And so she really didn't like my stepfather, who's my dad that I grew up with, who's an alcoholic and was really abusive to my mother and I. And in fact, she never called him by his name. She would say, hey, how's Apple doing? But she really hated my last name. Always hated my last name because it was my biological father's last name, who I'm one of 12, I think, children that he had. Yeah, he's Romani, which is gypsy. That's the kind of derogatory term for the people, but a real stereotype. Plays flamenco guitar, has long wavy hair, and just like travels around and impregnates women. Yeah, right. And so during that last conversation, she said, I want you to change your stupid name. And we used to talk about maybe me taking her last name.
Yeah.
But then she changed her last name because it was the last name of her bastard ex-husband or whatever. And so I said, I've been thinking about, like, I kind of retold that story. She's like, I remember that. And I was like, so, I think I might want to just call myself Mr. Helpish.
Uh-huh.
And she's like, yeah, that would be cool. So that's the thing. I get to start the Helpish family because
yeah.
Kirsten is known around these parts as Lady Helpish.
Awesome.
And so the point is what I want to say is to be helpish, not selfish, not selfless. And that's the big part of the big takeaway that really like stuck with me, is that she didn't say we're not selfish, we're selfless.
Right.
Because that wasn't true. My grandma was never selfless, was never without self.
Yeah.
She would never sacrifice herself completely.
Right.
But she knew what she could let go of. She was real. She knew she could survive on almost nothing. So if she had a little bit more than almost nothing and somebody had nothing, that's fine. She would share. And that's what Helpish is.
Yeah, man, that's such a mantra to live by, man. And you are really a shining embodiment of that Helpish ethos. And I definitely want to acknowledge you for that.
Thanks, man.
You've touched on so many amazing things and have such a unique, powerful take on creativity as a whole, with all your altruistic things that you've been up to with Dandyland, and your personal self-expression side. And it's really special how much you're giving back with the impact you're making. Is there any like upcoming projects of yours we should know about that you'd like to share with the community here? And what are the best ways we can get a hold of you?
Yeah. So right now I'm really focused on getting the word out about, kind of what we do, song therapy and that kind of thing.
Yep.
And letting people know that I wrote a book. But the big thing that I'm working on the most, that hopefully should be out pretty soon, because I think I'm about halfway done, is my next book, which is all about creative identity, called Uncle Nancy is Dead. And the biggest project that I'm working on is probably The Love. I'm really excited about it.
That's your new album, right?
It possibly will be the first solo Joey Helpish album, or it'll become a band, or it might become a lot of things. But there's a movement in there, and there's a thing in there that's special to me. And these songs, I've just been writing, I write so much, and I just kind of been picking these little gems out over the last couple of years and kind of setting them aside, and they're all rooted in love. And so that's the whole thing, is all these songs, their main root motive is love. And so that's what I'm working on the most. But yeah, it'll definitely be an album. It might be more than that. I don't know. It might be a movie. Who knows? But the best part about it is it's all completely recorded on an iPhone. And I'm actually working on all the videos. They're all one take videos, completely done on an iPhone in a room with a wall, just me, and just kind of like doing something really simple, but hopefully a little bit profound, and just kind of more me of who I am now. That's not. I still want to perform music, but I think that when I start performing again, either under The Love, or maybe it's Joey Helpish and The Love, I don't know. But I think I don't want to just do music. I think I want to also make music on stage, and I want to talk to people on stage, and I want to have something that's a little bit different than just like me going to a bar and singing songs for people. Right. Which I did for a long time, and it was great, and I don't ever want to do it again. For sure. Something different. So The Love is something that I'm working on probably the most, but I'm just kind of constantly working on, different things. And how people can get a hold of me. There's all kinds of ways. But there's one way that I want you to get a hold of me,
sure.
Dear listener. The myriad of ways are if you look up Joey Helpish on pretty much any social media platform, I'm there. No one else has named me. And if you go to DANDYLANDStudios.org, we have a little website. We don't do too much there, but it kind of will shoot you to different things. I have a podcast called How to Song. That hasn't been very active for a while, but I just finished the next season and I'm going to start uploading that this week. But how I want you to get a hold of me is I want you to text me 503-389-0476. That's 503-389-0476 because I believe in texting and it's easy. And I would love to hear from anybody. And that's usually how I do my booking. That's usually how I do most of my stuff is either in Facebook Messenger or via text. I have an email address. I don't look at it. So don't email me.
Fair enough. That's great.
Yeah, but I'm most active on Facebook. I'm trying to be more active on Instagram, but Facebook is kind of where my people are. So that's kind of the easiest way to get a hold of me, really.
Well, to all the listeners, if you're hearing this, I've personally done the song therapy session with Joey, and it was incredibly therapeutic, and it was such an awesome mantra that I had running in my head. I got a lot of value out of it. And you know what? I really hope everything unfolds just perfectly how it unfolds for you, man. And I appreciate your generosity with unpacking your super compelling and fascinating world. And, you know, you're bringing a lot of value to the universe. And I appreciate you. And, you know, best of luck with all your endeavors, man.
Thanks, man.